This week on It's Only a Movie, we're going to be taking a look at the 1979 CBS television miniseries Salem's Lot. Warner Brothers acquired the rights to Salem's Lot, and with a $4 million budget, they hired Tobe Hooper to direct. You may recognize the name Tobe Hooper from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the movie Poltergeist. David Soul and James Mason were the two main stars of the film. David Soul portrayed Officer John Davis in Magnum Force in 1973. But he's most well known for playing Detective Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson on the American television series Starsky and Hutch, which ran from 1975 to 1979. He also had a huge hit on the Billboard Hot 100 with the song Don't Give Up on Us. James Mason was an old-school Hollywood star. He started working in the 1930s all the way up until the 1980s. He's probably best remembered for Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, Warren Beatty's Heaven Can Wait, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and The Boys from Brazil. Bonnie Bedelia would probably best be remembered as playing Holly Gennaro McLean in the 1988 movie Die Hard. Reggie Nalder plays the vampire Kurt Barlow. The film also stars Jeffrey Lewis and Fred Willard. Now that we've got the director and the main cast, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the movie. And there will be spoilers. The film starts at a church in Guatemala, where we see Ben Mears being played by David Soul and Mark Petrie, a young boy that is with him. After filling their bottles with holy water, they see that the water begins to glow, which is apparently the sign for the vampires have found us once again. We then cut to 2 years earlier, when Mears decides to return to his hometown. He's a successful author and wants to write a story about the spooky old haunted house on the hill, the Marston House. When he attempts to rent the house, he finds out it's already been bought by Richard Straker, played by James Mason. Straker is also in town opening an antique shop with his unseen business partner, Kurt Barlow. Mears then finds himself moving into the local boarding house and beginning a relationship with Susan Norton, played by Bedelia. He also becomes close with her father, Dr. Bill Norton. After the Marston house receives the delivery of a large crate, people in town start to die mysteriously or disappear. Mears and Straker, being outsiders of the town, are immediately looked upon as suspects for the disappearances and deaths. At this point, you start to realize that I think Mr. Barlow's in town, and he's the one doing the nefarious deeds. Straker kidnaps a young boy named Ralphie Glick to give him to Barlow as an offering. Afterwards, the Glick boy comes back and claims his brother Danny. One of the classic horror scenes in this movie is when Danny is trying to get into Mark Petrie's house. He floats up to the window, scratches on it a bit, and keeps asking to be let in. So I guess they're following the old vampire deal of you have to invite the vampire in before it can just come into your house. Although it breaks that rule later when Barlow just comes busting in through windows. But the vampire in this film is not the suave, debonair type of vampire. It's much more the Nosferatu type. Actually, the actor who played him, Reggie Nalder, was severely burned on his face, so that they just kind of took and built off of his disfigurement, giving the vampire that unique, pursed, shrunken face look that he has. As the film goes on, more and more people go missing, including Susan. So Ben and Mark decide to go up to the Marston house and take care of things. At that point, they are confronted by Straker, and they find that the house is pretty much filled with all the people who have gone missing in town, only now they're in a vampiric form. Barlow takes a stake through the heart, and Ben and Mark get out of there, but not before setting the house on fire and burning it up. The film ends where it began, with Mark and Ben down in Guatemala with their glowing bottles of holy water. As they head back to their lodgings to get their belongings, Ben finds that Susan is in the bed waiting for him. And as he leans over to kiss her, he winds up staking her in the heart because she's also a vampire. They then gather their property and get out of there, knowing that the vampires are close behind following them. The movie is a collection of jump scares and all-around creepy scenes. There's a scene where Mike Ryerson's sitting in a chair after he's been turned into a vampire with this wild glowing eye effect, which when you think about it isn't that big of a deal like now. But if you ever watch this movie, keep in mind that's happening in 1978. The film has a lot of big stars in it, or big stars for back in the day. David Soul, I don't know if you understand how big this guy was. He was huge. Starsky and Hutch was a huge show. James Mason being in it, he was old Hollywood popping up in a television movie, so that was pretty impressive. Fred Willard, he always delivers in any film that he's in. Jeffrey Lewis is good in everything he does. As a small aside, actor Reggie Nalder, who played Barlow, worked in a 1981 movie with Bill Cosby called The Devil and Max Devlin. And he said that it was a very unpleasant experience working with Bill Cosby, and he described him as a pig, rude, arrogant, and very untalented. Maybe he knew something ahead of time before most of us found out about it. I would definitely recommend checking out Salem's Lot. I know it's just been remade in 2024, but I'd say go back and check out the original first because it's pretty good. And if you're sitting there watching the movie at night, you hear some fingernails scratching on the glass, asking to be let into your house, don't worry about it. It's only a movie.